Hi, I'm Stu Mortrude with Big Sandy Lake Association. Today's informational video is going to be about markers or buoys out on Big Sandy, what they mean, where they're at, and how to navigate around those. Today's area expert with me is Deputy Dan Osmus. He's with the Aitkin County Sheriff's Department. He's in charge of all the markers and the buoys out on the lake. And so, Dan, if you could just kind of run us through what some of those markers are that you put out there and what they mean.
Sure thing. If you look to my right here, there's two examples. One's going to be the slow no wake buoy. It's going to have the round circle and it's going to say slow no wake. And the other buoy is going to be with an orange diamond on it. It might say danger, it might say hazard, or it might say rock. They basically are all utilized for the same reasons. It's an area that you want to avoid. Since we're talking about the hazard, typically those are placed in areas with shallow water, rocks, or things that are going to potentially cause damage to your boat, so you want to avoid them. They're scattered out throughout Big Sandy. There's a lot of rock reefs, boulders, and shallow areas. And I guess when we're looking at how to navigate around those, you want to stay away as far away from them as possible. That's not always possible with some of the narrow areas. So it's the boater's responsibility to slow down and educate yourself of those areas by looking at your graph or talking to other boaters that are experienced in the area, and get to know kind of how each reef and area lays out. And as far as the slow no wake buoys, those are typically going to be in the flowage under the bridge road by the bridge. The second bridge is by Zorba's, and then on the Prairie River. How fast can you go for a slow no wake is a common question I get. Slow no wake basically means that you can't have a wake being developed from your boat, from the speed of your boat. A general rule of thumb is 5 miles per hour or less, but that can change depending on the type of boat you're driving. A pontoon boat is going to throw less of a wake when you compare it to a wake boat or a bigger fishing boat. So rule of thumb, look behind you, see how much of a wake you're creating, and slow down so that doesn't generate. And like I said, there may be some confusion of locations of the no wake. Those are put in place by ordinances. So they're put in as exact as we can, and we regulate it that way. So when you come up to them, make sure you're at the speed of a no wake until you carry through that zone. And we can highlight some more areas on the map over here, and I can explain how those kind of lay out. As far as no wake, area I'm pointing at here is going to be on Bridge Road. That zone is just between the two buoys as you're going underneath that bridge. The second location that we'll highlight is on the Prairie River. That slow no wake zone starts at the entrance of the river, and it carries on through several buoys. A lot of people travel that area. There's some cabins and other things downriver. When you get past the last buoy, the river widens out there, and it's not regulated as a slow no wake anymore. And then if we come back down by the Highway 65 bridge, there's a no wake marker on each side of the highway there. That is just regulating just the distance between those two buoys. When you go past that, down into the flowage, the slow no wake does not start again until it narrows down where you get down by the cabins until you cross the County Road 3 bridge. As far as the other markers on the map here, a lot of these orange tags, those are a lot of areas that have several buoys marking them. Those are all hazard areas, and they're not all marked, but those are some of the bigger areas that have several buoys. And the general rule of thumb is just educating yourself around those areas so you understand how to travel in that area and to navigate it safely. One area that kind of gets questioned a lot is actually over here off of Ponderosa Point. and there's a big weed island that's kind of out in the middle. There's 4 buoys around that. Later summer, you'll see all the reeds and stuff sticking up. That's just marking a big mud flat that's shallow. So you obviously don't want to run into that with your boat either. Is there any other areas, Stu, that I'm forgetting?
I think a lot of people ask about this area as you come underneath the bridge. There's a few markers that lie in between these, and people ask, you know, which side do I go on, or is it just staying clear of it completely is the key here?
I would try to avoid it completely, but typically if you see any, like off of Muck Island here, there's 4 buoys that come out and kind of an arch that kind of follows that island shape out there. That's all a rock reef, so that's dangerous to try to drive in between any of those buoys. So generally, if there's a buoy out, typically from the buoy towards whatever shoreline is closest, whether that being actual shore or the shoreline of an island, it's typically not the route you want to take. But like I said, so you don't get tripped up, educate yourself about the layout, and if you have questions, definitely ask.
Sounds good. And then late in the summer, it usually happens. Water levels fluctuate, and these markers can move because they're not really solid to the ground. They're with anchors, right?
Correct.
So if a big wave or big winds come up, they can move. If somebody sees one that's moving or has moved, who should they contact? And
they should contact myself or leave a message with the sheriff's office, and they will get that message to me, and I will get out and repair it as soon as I can get out there. So, but yeah, that's a great point. Like even now we're dealing with high waters. That's going to shift things around. Any storms, heavy waves that can shift things around. So sometimes the markers do move. I have had challenges with people moving them. They don't want their fishing spots marked, so they actually move them themselves. So you have to just assume that they're in the right spot, but take caution in case they have moved.
Sure. And that might be also an issue with some of the larger wakeboard boats. Maybe when they see these markers, it's good to stay clear of them because their wake could actually bounce that thing out of position.
It could do that, yep.
Great. Well, good. Well, that's kind of a rundown. As you can see, there's a lot of hazard areas on the lake. We just wanted to get this out there so people are aware of that. Pay attention to your no wake zones. And if you see a marker that's moved, contact the county and they'll get out and put it in the right spot. So that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you.